This is Ahval Online, meeting point of accurate news and free comment on the current affairs of Turkey. Welcome to our podcast series.
Hello, and welcome to the Hot Pursuit podcast series. My name is İlhan Tanır, Ahval editor, and today, along with editor-in-chief Yavuz Baydar, we will try to assess how the Turkish government is handling the coronavirus threat to the country. Yavuz Baydar, welcome to the Hot Pursuit.
Hello, İlhan.
So today, on Friday, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan announced new measures against the virus pandemic, including a new ban for persons younger than 20 and older than 65, and travel ban for 31 major cities. Do you think at this point these measures are enough to stop the spread?
Well, we should say that today's statement coming by President Erdoğan points out to a tardy, gradual, escalated response. And these were maybe little too expected, little too late, and little too little, as we will see. Days have been passing, and there have been warnings and signals that the situation in Turkey is serious, that it would escalate inevitably, and unfortunately, the Turkish government has been quite aloof and slow in responding to the management of the crisis. And today's steps comes as part of the escalation to restrict movement and also to impose some sort of restrictions in public places. The interesting point, there are several points to be made. I think the statement by Erdoğan was not done in presence of Health Minister Fahrettin Koca. Koca appeared some half an hour before Erdoğan, which was followed by Erdoğan himself. This is, compared to the patterns in the democratic world, quite bizarre. Usually, leaders like Trump or many other people in the UK, for example, appear together with the people who are responsible, who have the knowledge, who have the know-how, who have the data, together to enlighten people, to inform people. But there seems to be some sort of divided level of information, division, to speak even more clearly. Koca gave some data, some warnings, and did not go deeper into what President Erdoğan had to say. And he gave some important details, as pointing out that there was continued escalation. And also importantly, he said 78.7% of the cases, of the deaths, have been above 60 years of age, which means 21.3 have been below 60 years of age. This is an extremely high proportion compared to Italy, Spain, South Korea, etc. Usually in those countries, even in the United States, deaths below 60 years of age, in average, are about 5%, 6%. In Italy, 1.7%, to be specific. So this points out to a very dramatic proportion, dimension of the deaths. A lot of people below 60 years of age are dying in Turkey. That is something to underline. I think this explains also, why Erdoğan is sort of distancing itself from his health minister in a statement. B, that he is now, that his measures to limit the movement of people below 20 years of age It's apparently a risk zone that he has realized, although it's a bit delayed. Nevertheless, the facts are clear. And then we come to the measures. Now it is forbidden for people above 65 years of age to go out to public, as well as people below 20 years of age. But in between 20 years of age and 65, it is not.
So
why
not?
Why is it not? It's important to know. I think the concern of President Erdoğan continues to remain that the wheels of economy should be turning, should be kept turning. He is deeply concerned about that in order to keep control over the grassroots, to keep control over the possible frustration, collective frustration and fury. And again, in due time, in short time, a lot of criticism will start raining upon him, because these measures may not be effective enough to contain the spread of virus.
Yes. So today, during his speech, actually, he was saying that Turkey is doing much better than the Western countries, even though we have graphs and charts showing that Turkey trajectory that Turkey is following is could be the worst in the world. You said that Erdoğan wants to continue with, economy. He cannot halt the basic functions. But at the end of the day, don't you think he is going to have to put these bans, full lockdown, as most of the countries are doing? So he's just delaying the costs, but also for failing to act, he is putting a even greater number of people in danger at the end of.
One of the decisions made public is about 30 cities whose access will be completely blocked, except necessary transportation and communications. Plus Zonguldak, there seems to be problems with the people because of it's a mining city. There are lots of people, miners, etc., who traditionally have difficulties with their health, lungs, etc. These restrictions are, as I said, have been necessary as compared to the other countries. But Erdoğan seems to see these restrictions as some sort of attempts to control also what he sees as possible unrest against his government as a result of growing discontentment with the situation, more than measures to contain the spread of the virus. We will see. His patterns are well known by now, after a decade, and his statement also confirms this observation, that it was colored with a lot of powerful divisive rhetoric, attacking the opposition, what he sees as poisonous attempts to threaten Turkey, which was there, and he attacked directly the main opposition party, CHP, as a main source of these kind of poisonings and threats. Interestingly, one interesting part, of course, was that initially, in the beginning of his speech, he said the threat came from the United States and the West by way of spreaders of virus into Turkey. And he did not mention with a word that the main source, proved by the fact and observations, were the people who were returning from Mecca, the Umrah, more than 20,000 of them. And 15,000 of them were already allowed into Turkey without any control. And any scientific objective observation is already established the fact that those were the people who spread the virus powerfully in those provinces. 56 of the provinces, as Minister of Health Fahrettin Koca this evening revealed. So again, the statement seems that to tell us that Erdoğan continues the well-known rhetoric of division, divide by rule, and also it's also telling us that he is deeply concerned of keeping his grassroots, his pious, devout grassroots around him by again demonizing the West and United States as the enemy, sending out, quote unquote, the virus-bearing people into Turkey. So, in short, this is not going to convince his opponents, the opposition circles, people, large segments of people who think that the management of this crisis is not going well. And again, given the fact that the virus is spreading vertically, he may again be forced to appear, enforcing further stricter measures.
Just before Mr. Erdoğan was about to speak, the US dollar firmed against the major currencies, but also lira. Lira stood at 6.74 against the dollar just before Mr. Erdoğan spoke, and all day it was rising to the highest level since the currency crisis in 2018. And he has been under criticism for, his economic package is really addressing the issues, and his spokespeople today have been attacking the opposition. From now on going forward, should we expect Turkish administration to go and arrest more journalists and go after the civil society organizations and the oppositions as usual that they've been doing since 2016?
The dimension of economy is interesting, Ilan, because it's good that you raise this point, because that is the main preoccupation of President Erdoğan currently. Of course, even before the virus appeared on the horizon, COVID-19 emerged on the horizon, the Turkish economy was already in a bad shape. It was declining, and it was the main dynamic that kept displayed the decline of his popularity, and rising unemployment, rising inflation, and also deficit that has been becoming more and more visible, and the foreign investment also sort of becoming more and more pale. But of course, when the COVID-19 passed across the border into Turkey, and this again added to the preoccupation, we can conclude easily that what preoccupied Erdoğan was how deep, how vast its impact would be on the Turkish economy. Now, what we see is, of course, a rising unemployment. Although all the small-scale businesses have shut down, and the mid-scale or large-scale businesses are under immense strain. Exports have fallen down by 18%, and tourism, which is about 12-13% of the entire Turkish economy. If this storm continues, will be completely lost. This is not only about Turkey, but for Turkish economy, tourism is like the economy of Greece is extremely important. It's crucial. So I think the main preoccupation, rather than the consequences of the virus in terms of health, in terms of losses, is far more important in his mind. So this is, I think, what we should pay attention more than anything else in the coming days and weeks and months, maybe. As far as the other part of your question goes, I think we have known by now the reflexes, hardline reflexes of this government ever since 2013, Gezi Park protests, that any kind of discontentment, protest, any kind of objection, the way Turkey is managed, has been met with the harshest possible way. And these measures continue, even after the outbreak of the COVID-19 in Turkey. There have been continued appointments of trustees in Kurdish municipalities. There have been continued arrests of people who voiced their dissent in social media and internet. Most recently, in the past 2-3 days, a new group of journalists and other people were arrested. And this clampdown continues, and it's going to. It seems it's not going to lose any speed in the coming days. And as far as also the growing calls and demands about release of the political prisoners, 55,000 political prisoners are in Turkish jails, of 300,000. As far as they go, those demands go, the government seems to stand rather indifferent to those demands. As we speak, the Commission of the Commission of Justice is in assembly in Parliament, discussing a bill about which parts of these prisoners will be released.
And I believe the Parliament just started today debating that bill. Mm-hmm. It will free tens of thousands from the country's prisons, but this is mainly due to the spread of the virus. What is the status on that bill? What is your expectation, and when do you think it might pass the Parliament?
Just before I and you started to talk about this issue, I spoke to two sources who are now in the meeting of the Commission, which had caused a lot of anticipation from the families of the political prisoners, leftist Kurds, also the members of Gülen movement, and also students, journalists, academicians, lawyers, defense lawyers who are in jail as well. So these sources tell me that the bill, the draft text prepared by the ruling AKP and its coalition partner, the nationalist MHP, is standing firm. It's been defended firmly and harshly by Erdoğan circle, AKP and MHP. And all the demands and calls and explanations and reasonings and arguments by the opposition, pro-Kurdish HDP party and CHP, are basically met by deaf ears. What the opposition wants, main opposition, more politely, but HDP, pro-Kurdish HDP, more bluntly and lucidly telling them that it's all about equality, equal treatment. Everybody's equal before the law and justice. And they are demanding that the dissidents, political prisoners, people who are jailed because of their viewpoints, views, and what they think should be added to this proportion. Currently, what MHP and AKP are proposing is that around 90,000 common criminals will be released, excluding those who are either in detention or sentenced in crimes defined as quote-unquote terror. And my sources tell me that no matter how they argued from whichever vantage point, they are met by aloofness and defiance. Also, the one minor member of the opposition bloc, İYİ Party, led by Meral Akşener, their member is also standing quite silent in those discussions, not opposing the ruling bloc, AKP and MHP. So the mission of the opposition is quite hard, and both of my sources in my different separate conversations seem to agree that this bill will pass despite their opposition with no amendments and come to Parliament General Assembly on Tuesday without any changes. So situation is from the point of view of those who are expecting the release of political prisoners in whole or in full or in part, the bill will be very, very limited, causing even further fury and anger.
Okay, thank you. And today we discussed both the virus and how Turkish government is handling, as well as the bill began debated at the Turkish Parliament Justice Commission today. And we will continue monitoring these both issues closely. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you, İlhan.
Ahval podcastlerini tüm mobil telefonlarda Spotify, SoundCloud ve Spreaker üzerinden dinleyebilirsiniz. Apple iPhone kullanıcıları bize iTunes üzerinden de ulaşabilir. Türkiye'nin ve hayatın cıvıl cıvıl sesleri Ahval Podcast dizisinde. Kulağınız bizde olsun.